So without further ado, I would like to invite to the stage Kris Constable, who is a community builder and cybersecurity expert who, as the CEO of DecisionTree, is going to share business perspectives on values. Welcome, Kris.
Perfect. Thanks, man. But good morning. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thanks to Michelle and Toby and the Sea to Sky for hosting this. Thank you. I'm going to jump in. Two prefixes. One is I am passionate about everything I do, so I talk really fast. As a result, the talk will probably be only about a few minutes, and then I want to get into Q&A, specifically around decisions and values. So hopefully some of the things I say will encourage some discussion. So quick background about me. No worries. So quick background while we're waiting for the slide deck. I became the CEO of DecisionTree just over a year ago. So I've spent about a year deep diving into what makes a good decision, specifically in a team context. And so while we're making team decisions, we all know that decisions have a lot of options. So a quick example of a decision might be for a couple, where should we go on vacation next year? So your options would be Tofino, Hawaii, Cuba. So we all know about options and decisions, but the important part of a decision is the success factors. And so the success factors of a decision, it turns out, are also goals and or values. And so in the case of where should we go on vacation, an example might be somewhere that has hiking or somewhere that has dancing, this kind of thing. So based on that, we've done really well on the team decision-making context. But we started to think about this goals and values thing and how we could build that into our platform. So we'll hopefully get to the first slide here. So here what we did is we looked at what are the main values that people have. So we just kind of loaded in our app the top 50 core values that organizations / people would usually have. You can put whichever values you have in this app. You don't have to use one of the 50, but we just use that as a guide. So you may have 1 or 2 core values. You may have 10. We recommend 5 just to get started, but you can go as far as you want. So after we built this into the app, we thought, well, what are our values at DecisionTree as far as my management team is concerned? So we did the ever fun, once every 5 years strategic planning retreat, and we came back with our feel-good values. This is what's going to resonate with us. And so we put that into our app, and we said, now that we've got that in the app, can we measure our alignment with our values? And so here you can see the pick list of the 50. And here's our, I don't know if you can see it, hopefully, but I'll just quickly read it. Reduce expenses, increase income. Traction we actually added later. Maximum value for customers. Create a great team culture. Do good for the planet. Minimize risk. One of the fun things with the team part of value alignment is each person kind of using sliders says how important they are to you. And so you actually get the team average. So you can kind of understand where if there's a discrepancy between target and actual, it means, oh, maybe your values are different from the team. So it's kind of maybe worth that in a discussion. So a month later, after doing this, we went back and we were using, of course, DecisionTree for our decision making. And we kind of got the big wow a month in. And if you look on the right where the teal background is, the best case we had aligned with our values in decision making was 7 decisions were used on reducing expenses. But over the rest of them weren't even used 5 times in a month. And so we were like, wow, we all identify as being values and goals based, and we weren't actually meeting what we had identified as our core values. So we were like, what do we do next? And so we ended up creating another tab, which here says other values. We've since called it all values and goals. And so we ran it for another month, and we started to look at this tab. And what we've discovered using technology is we can go into your team decision-making and tell you in real time what your goals and values are. So the 2 strong ones for us at the end of the next month was responsibility and risk. And so instead of waiting for the next 5 years to have your next strategic planning retreat, you can actually go in every day, every week, every month, how often you want to check in with your values. So we've started to do it in our weekly meetings. So in the case of risk, for example, we were like, well, what do we mean by risk? So we got to click on the 10 decisions and go and look how we were using it. It turns out that we were using risk in different ways. So it could mean risk aversion for your team. It could be meaning financial risk or fiscal risk. It could be physical risk. So after our team meeting, we agreed we're never going to use just the word risk alone again. We're always going to give it a prefix or a suffix to see what kind of risk we have. Another example that we discovered for us is we were using the term current financial independence as a goal. After we talked about it, we're like, what does that mean? Do we really care? It turns out we didn't really care, so we removed it, and we said, let's stop using that as a goal / value in our decision making. Another stronger example was business expertise. After we talked about that, we're like, well, we want to be the kind of leaders in team decision making, so expertise is a strong value. So we just clicked on add to core values, and now it jumps over. Outside of business, like you can use it for your executive team, your management team, your entire organization, but you can use it for other groups as well. So several of my friends, we play in Bitcoin, Ethereum, and cryptocurrencies, which are kind of hot right now. So we have a team I've created in there called the Cryptocurrency Investment Group. And so we just make decisions every few days on which currency is going to go up, do we think, which one's going to go down. And so we've been using that for a while. This is not doctored. I've actually never even looked at the goals of that team until 2 days ago. But I just clicked on all goals, copy and pasted that for you. But this is the real-time goals of my investment group, which is the highest 1 to 12-week gains is the highest one, then highest 1 to 3-year gains. Is it solving an interesting problem? In the case of cryptocurrencies, if you don't follow, a lot of them are like pump and dump kind of vaporware. But for my group, at least, we want them to be solving an interesting problem, make the world better. Anonymity and decentralization is important as a goal, and the highest gain this week. So this is kind of just an interesting discovery that we didn't identify as goals or values, but the tool is showing us in real time. This one is, my target market for my company is CEOs. We identify as a CEO tool, mostly for mid and large-sized organizations. But I have one full-time staff who's just working with entrepreneurs. His name is Alan Cornford. And so he's actively working with dozens of entrepreneurs in the community, mostly Vancouver. And so I just went and took this screenshot. This is, again, a live screenshot, not doctored. And you can see, for example, like 97% of importance, or 98% is their revenue depends on it. So when an entrepreneur is making a team decision for their startup, we can start to see here from the data on what the goals and values of entrepreneurs are. That's it for the talk. I'll say if you do try it, one of the learning lessons I've had is it also works for personal. So I created a team with my name in it. I put my own values because I identify as being very value aligned. I started putting all my personal decisions into it and realized very quickly that I'm not as value aligned as I thought I was. And it kind of hit a wall about 2 weeks ago when I stopped using it for my own personal team because I'm psychologically fatigued from my own app. So it's an interesting exercise for sure. So also don't recommend it for relationships. At least one relationship has ended from trying to align your values and see where you thought they were aligned and they weren't. So that I would recommend for journaling and conversation for now until we can solve that. I'm Kris at DecisionTree. If you're on Twitter, I'm at CQWWW, and I hope to answer any and all questions you have. Thank you. Pardon? 2 questions. Anybody? Everybody's value aligned, goal aligned? I'll say it back.
I heard an interview with Ray Dalio recently, and he was talking about this with his team, sort of the same thing. How have you seen it impact group dynamics, or do you have any experience with it impacting group dynamics?
How does it impact group dynamics based off of Ray Dalio, who's working in this space? Group dynamics are interesting. One thing that we don't disclose, so for decisions, goals, and values, for all 3, we don't identify who on the team, for example, is an outlier. So you would just see like a gap in the spread between you and the team. And so I've noticed even in my team, but we have seen it in other teams where if everybody's saying like, 98% importance this thing, and then one person puts 3, that changes the average notably. And so you don't necessarily know who it is. I mean, you probably do if you've got that kind of rabble rouser in your team, which happens to be me usually. So you kind of get an idea, but you don't know for sure. And so, but at least when you have your next team meeting, you can have that conversation and say, hey, I thought this was like what our value was and our goal, but maybe not. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Please.
What does it look like to be adding the data to the system, to be getting?
Sure, and I mean, you can do it just from simple journaling, right? Like you can just put your values in there and then your goals every day and kind of talk about what you've been doing in your decisions. But from in-app question, how does DecisionTree work? You put in your decisions, which is the question, kind of a pro tip if you've never kind of thought about the architecture of a good decision. Never do a binary decision, like a yes or no answer, always leave it open-ended. because you'll kind of find other fun options that you didn't expect probably. And then once you've done that, you put in your options, and then you go into success criteria. And again, success criteria, it'll actually, in-app, it'll actually pull from your goals and values, so you can use that pull-down list, or you can add new ones that are applicable just to that specific team decision. And once you go through that, you send it out to your team, whoever you want to have contribute into that. Once you're done voting, everybody else is done voting, it'll tell the answer. And there's different types of answers. There's like single answer, depending on the decision. Sometimes you want a ranked by priority decision for the various options. If you want, later I can reach out and I'll show you.
I'm just curious as to which cryptocurrencies other than Bitcoin you didn't
We'll save that for the break. The question is around cryptocurrencies. So I think that's it. Thanks very much. Appreciate your time. I'm around this evening, so if you want to talk later, shoot me an email.